Pop Stars, welcome to this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tanner.
Thank you for joining us. This week's episode is brought to you by Journeys Travel Service. You can call on the cheap, you can travel on the cheap, but still feel like you're first class. Whatever your destination, we'll get you there. Make sure you have a nice place to stay and a good time while you're at it. Ready for your next adventure? Check them out at journeys.travel. Tammy, what's your dream vacay?
Like my ultimate vacation.
Yeah.
I got three.
Okay.
So to go to Australia,
Oh yeah, that's
but
a good
like
one.
travel straight across Australia because I've always wanted to go to Sydney, but I always wanted to like go to like New Zealand and the barrier reefs, and which is hilarious because I'm not really about that ocean and nothing like that, but I've always wanted to see it. So that's my one, is to go to Australia and travel across the country.
Hmm.
And then my second one is Ireland, which
Hmm.
has been on my list since my dude. So Ireland has definitely been on my list. And then my third one has always been Greece.
Oh
So
wow, yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
those are like
I
my three ultimates. What about you?
I love traveling, so
Mhm.
I like Australia. I've always wanted to go there. I'm kind of I'm a sports junkie, so I've always wanted to kind of do like a sports trip. So I would love to go see the major tennis opens, like the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and of course the U.S. Open, which is here in New York. So I think that would be cool, and just kind of check out those countries while I'm there. And then Greece is of course I've always want to go to Greece. And Bali, Bali is on my list. Just
Mm.
want to go to a tropical island and just see um, the different environments, the different surroundings of Bali, and Africa. I want to go on a safari. So Tanzania, Kenya, something like that. I also wouldn't mind seeing South Africa. So just get to some places in the motherland. But that's my. But I'm game for traveling just about anywhere as long as it's not a lot of political turmoil happening there. I'm good. South America or whatever. So um, just gotta be crazy. My friend was about to go. I want to say she was going to Tanzania. Was it no Senegal? I think she was on her way to Senegal right when the latest political upheaval happened. Like
Ooh.
she was due to leave that week,
Oh
and
my
so she
bone.
and so she'd been talking about it, and then just when it really got bad, I'm like, oh yeah, you need to cancel that ticket. She's like, I already did it. I'm like, yeah. So um, but yeah, all right, cool. Well, this week we hit the road with the ladies of Joyride, starring Ashley Park as Audrey, Sherry Cola as Lolo, Stephanie Sue as Kat, and Sabrina Wu as Deadeye. Audrey and Lolo, who are lifelong best friends, embark on a business trip to China with Deadeye as the tag along. Once in China, they meet up with Audrey's college BFF, Kat, who's now a successful actress. And together, the four unlikely friends set out on a raucous misadventure of identity, self discovery, and connection as they trace Audrey's roots while searching for her birth mother. So, Tammy, what did you think of Joyride? Was it a smooth, fun ride, or was it a broke down lemon? Poopy.
I'm gonna go with the broke down lemon. No, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna have a very, very unpopular opinion. Just because I have, read some of the reviews, and I've just watched like what people have been saying about it. So it's just gonna be an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion. That's why we're here, right?
Yep.
I can understand why people enjoyed Joyride. I definitely can. But I was not one of those people. Now I want to start off by saying I'm not necessarily a fan of raunchy comedy. I'm not a fan necessarily of just comedy movies, but especially raunchy comedy. It just doesn't appeal to me the same way that it did, when Hangover came out when I was like in my early 20s, something like that. Ooh, I'm showing my age. Ooh. but but I'm not about that. Like, just out there, ridiculous things happening in events just for laughs kind of thing. I'll do comedy and action. I'll do dramedy. I'll do drama and comedy. Love those types of movies. But this movie just did not resonate with me. The comedy was very hit or miss. I kind of rolled my eyes way more than I laughed throughout the whole entire movie. There were parts that I actually enjoyed, more the ending than majority of the middle or beginning. So there were parts I can talk about, scenes that I really, really liked or enjoyed enough to be like, huh, okay, that was cute. But it was just too raunchy for me. It wasn't my cup of tea. I just did not enjoy the bullshit. Like I felt like it was so nonsensical, if that's the right word. I think that's not true. Like it was just nonsense to me on doing all this ridiculous stuff for laughs. But I understand people who would enjoy that type. I'm just not one of those people. And we'll get into it, of course.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised. You know, sometimes when you see movies like this, all the funny parts are in the trailer. But I'm with you in a sense. I think as I'm getting older, and you know, I have a very in a
Raunchy mindset. Mm-hmm.
yes, I have a very raunchy mindset and a very not suitable for work sense of humor. Um, and you know, I don't have that politically correct or PG-13 sense of humor. Sometimes it can be quite dark. Having said that, I think most people are surprised that I'm not a big fan generally of these types of movies either. Like, I don't know, I like comedy, but I like comedy that makes sense. I'm not a big fan of just stupid comedies. So when people are talking about all, you know, when Will Ferrell had his all his big movies like Ricky Bobby and all that shit, I'm like, huh? You know, and I think I should maybe go back now. I don't know if it's just changing, just so much going on in the world that okay, I'm willing to just laugh at anything because sometimes you gotta in today's climate, you just gotta laugh at what you can. But I really wanted to see this because and I did like The Hangover, the first one too. But I wanted to see this because you know how I feel representation matters. And
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing. So I was in when I saw that it was a comedy headlined by women and that it was a raunchy comedy head by women, especially women of color. And it was better than I thought it was. Like there were moments where I was literally laughing out loud. Like I had tears in my eyes. So it got me. And there are some parts where I'm with you where it's like, huh, this doesn't make much sense or this is kind of stupid. Of course, you know, it's rare that you're gonna find a movie where every joke lands, but I love that it was unapologetic in its raunchiness. I love that it was headlined by women and women of color at that. Um, and it showed that hey, women, we can be just as raunchy as men. We can love sex just as much as men. We can have body counts that are just as high as men. Hence the 3 hour voicemail about everything and everyone she's done. You know, we tell fart jokes, we make bad decisions that aren't just related to relationships. It's just, you know, so I love that we got to see this from a different perspective. Even if I hadn't enjoyed it a lot, I would give the movie credit for showcasing that. And I thought they did a good story um, of blending the humor, a good job of blending the humor with the story. Like for me, that sometimes you sacrifice one for the other, and I think that this one did a good job of trying to get the two to kind of meet in the middle, and you understood through it all where the characters were coming from, especially Lolo and her. I guess what we call it identity crisis. I mean, not
Mm,
Lolo, Audrey. Would we call it an identity crisis or?
I guess so. Trying to find herself without realizing that she was already lost from a very young age.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it was good. One of the things I felt was a bit forced though was the whole thing about her job. Like at first, I don't know, it just felt like it was a plot point that didn't really work for me because it felt like they were just trying to use it to get her to China. And I think we could have, something, the thing that happened with her job, with her spoiler alert, go figure, with her getting fired, I think that could have happened in the beginning and would have been just as fine, because it
And
really,
still sent her to China with the purpose of what Lola did, like on
yeah.
like finding her background or something like that. I think I agree with you on that. Would have been better than going there to get this rich Chinese dude to sign a contract. Like I agree with you. It was very disjointed and it just did not really fit the storyline or the movie overall.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you get to China and this dude is drinking, blowing coke off the hookers, and well, not literally hookers, but you know what I mean. He's drinking in a club. He wants to sign a multi-billion-dollar business deal in the club, drinking under the table. You throw up on him, but the deal breaker, the red line, is your relationship with your mother. You not having Chinese roots, or you not being from China, or some shit like that. And I'm like, really, dude?
But
That's where,
that's actually true though.
yeah, I get it, but
That's very, very realistic.
I'm like, but yeah, and so I was just like, eh. So, and like you said, the whole job thing, it just didn't, it was, that was too forced to me. And then all of a sudden she was busting her ass, and it seemed like she loved her job. Like, you never got any indication that she didn't like her job, until all of a sudden it's like, you never liked that job anyway. And I'm like, what?
Because it didn't seem that way to me.
Yeah, it's like you were excited about the promotion. You were going to go to LA, head up your own division. Like, that's what you wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, it was like, there was never any conversation, even if there had been a dialogue or a hint or something about that beforehand, until the end. It's like, oh, you never liked that job anyway. And I'm like, huh? So the whole job thing, that was forced to me.
But oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, see, and I was gonna say, because another aspect of this movie that I just could not flow in is Audrey and Lolo's friendship. I feel that sometimes we outgrow people in our lives. And I was just like, it just seemed on, granted, I understand opposites attract. I get that. I definitely get that. And I understand people do have friendships like that. But they're mooching off of you just like in real life. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, what is the appeal? Like, honestly, what is the appeal? She lives in a shack in your backyard. She doesn't have a job. Now, granted, I understand you're an artist, but you don't really put forward that much effort because you're trying to sell your art in your parents' restaurant, Chinese restaurant. That don't make no sense to me. And then when they started to like go off on each other, and everything that you have felt, you just put it out there. And I'm just like, y'all never had these conversations? Because I've had conversations with my friends about like my dating style, and we've had those kind of like random conversations as we're growing up, especially my friends from different backgrounds than me, whether they're Black American, whether my white friends, my white associates, my Muslim friends, like I've had like, it would just be random conversations, but those kind of things come up. So I'm like, y'all have been friends since you were like 10 years old, and in all that time I feel like there was no real conversations that y'all have ever had at all. And the only thing that held y'all together is that Lolo was in your face about herself, and so she always protected you and let you be your white self, and that was all that held y'all together. And then I'm supposed to believe at the end, well, like y'all are best friends, and I was just like, no, let that friendship go. like I'm sorry, like I just could not see the appeal of it. And then it goes into where I didn't see the appeal of that, and I also didn't see the lies of she didn't enjoy her career, because all of a sudden you're trying to tell me you don't enjoy your career, but you did enjoy your career. Now, you didn't enjoy the racism that went into your job. Definitely understand that you had to brush that off, but isn't that all code switching anyway? I don't know. It just their friendship seemed off to me. I was not a believer in the friendship. I was not a believer in the friendship, and I was fully on Audrey's side when she went off on Lolo for making decisions and everything that she was doing. And she was just like, why would you lie like that when we don't even know what my mom is? we have no idea where she is, and you just open your mouth and lie like that. Like, how are we supposed to come back from that kind of thing?
Yeah. In some aspects I get it. Like you have lifelong friends and I had a friend, one of my best friends. We've been friends since we were 5. And you kind of go through phases where, and it's not a matter of outgrowing each other, it's just your relationship changes as you grow. And so I think the part of, and I agree with you, as far as Lolo, a lot of her, a lot of the issues stem from her lack of maturity. You know, I understand why they were still friends. I do. It's that sense of sisterhood. It's that sense of she's been there. But I agree. They should have had that conversation where they, and sometimes it's hard. You just kind of go with the flow that this is your person. This is just who they are. And sometimes it's hard to have that conversation with someone, especially when you don't know how they'll take it, and where you're afraid that it'll end the friendship, but you don't necessarily want the friendship to end. You just want it or need for it to change. So I think that's where that was coming from. But I agree. Lolo was she was a good ultimately she was a good friend with a good heart. She just went about a lot of shit the wrong way, and a lot of that stemmed from her lack of maturity, you know, and no one taking her seriously. And and she liked that. Like even her parents are like, "Oh, you're the lawyer that's going to bail us out of jail one day, or that's going to probably end up bailing her out of jail." And the look on her face when they said that, I'm like, "But that's how you present, even at this age. You're damn near 30 years old, and that's still how you're presenting. Just
Mm-hmm.
because that was what was written about you in a fucking middle school or high school yearbook, at this point in time, you shouldn't still be presenting that. Like you're older now, you know better, do better. Like, okay, I get the whole, trust me, I get the starving artist thing. I get, but dude, you gotta have life happens. You gotta have a day job to take care of your responsibilities until your art shit takes off, you know. So part of it was that everyone enabled her in her bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so I don't think it necessarily came from a place of malice. I just think it came from her. No one ever really holding her accountable, and her still trying to function like they did when they were kids, and that just didn't work. Audrey had grown up, and Lolo just she didn't, until she was forced to. So I was like, okay, but so I kind of understood it. But yeah, when she went off, normally when someone has word diarrhea like that, and just all that pent up shit, and you're like, damn, that was harsh. And I'm like, yeah, harsh but necessary. So it was really interesting. Um i i guess one of the parts I thought was funny, and I liked it. Um I love the part where, when she went to meet Lolo's family, the very Chinese family, and she was like, they loved you because they gave her the good chocolate, and then when they found out she wasn't actually Chinese, that she was Korean, they kind of changed. They were like, they just started going off, and her grandma was like, I want my dress back. I'm like, the dress that you wore when you were deflowered by the love of your life, who's not your husband. But and then the other friend was like, well, at least she's not Japanese. And dad, I was like, stop being so racist. And I thought that part was really interesting, because it showed that, minorities, whether you're black, you're Hispanic, you're native or indigenous, that we're not monoliths, that we come from all over. We all have our own issues with identity and acceptance, especially when it comes to finding our place in society at large, in white dominated spaces. Like you said, the code switching on your job. We've like I think every minority, unless you're Clarence Thomas, um, has had to code switch and kind of walk that line, the back and forth. Because I caught you when you switched up and said my white friends, I mean associates, to. So it was just like, yeah. But I think, and it was interesting to me where she was like, if I had grown up with my parents, I wouldn't be so determined, and I wouldn't be like who I am. And Lolo looked at her like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like you're every Asian parent's dream, you know." So I just thought that was interesting.
But I do think, see, at the same time, like I get what Lolo is saying, but it does say that like her parents did play a role in her success because of the fact that she had white parents who she loved dearly, but they were white parents, on a reason why it pushed her so much to be that Asian stereotype of being extremely successful, which I think also played into Lolo not being successful, because there it's always opposite sides, because there's a balance. And a lot of times, at least when I talk to like, Asian people that I know, like they're like, it's either you have to be extremely smart, where like you want to be a lawyer or a doctor, which is what was mentioned as well when they were talking about like what is your career, when her mom was talking about in the video. Is either you're a lawyer or a doctor, or you're a fuck up. And so it's like she's the lawyer and Lolo is the fuck up, which kind of plays into the culture of the amount of pressure that goes into it. And I agree with you on that. A lot of times they catered to Lolo, definitely catered to Lolo. But I also want to say, like, Lolo's parents never even like connected on the fact of like Audrey had like no Asian traits. Like she looked Asian, but she
You
had
mean
no
Chinese?
connection whatsoever. Huh?
Chinese or oh no Asian? What do you mean
Like
by traits?
so what I mean is that she had no connection whatsoever to her culture. Like, especially
Oh
when
yeah.
she thought she was Chinese, there was no connection to her culture. So you mean to tell me your girls have grown up their whole entire life? And I can understand Audrey's parents feeling that, well, she's grown up around these Asian people her whole life, that is her connection to her culture. But for the Asian family, there was no like, okay, at least let me teach you some Chinese. At least, like, let me teach you about your culture. She knew nothing about her culture. The only thing that connected to her culture was that she was Chinese. That was the only thing. Other than that, there was not 1 ounce of connection that she had to her culture. That's crazy to me.
It
But you
is.
grew up
And
around them your whole entire life, and you mean to tell me ain't nothing that I said there ain't no way, because that's at least the Asian people that I know, that's not how their families work. It's a fully embracing you. I'm gonna have you fully immersed in this. You coming over to my house for Chinese holidays. We doing Chinese New Year, like all of this, and she had none of that. That was crazy to me.
yeah, because it was like uh, growing like grew up in PWI like neighborhoods and
Mm-hmm.
schools and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But and so when we initially moved to Texas, we lived in a place called Lubbock, which is real parchment. It's
Mm-hmm.
real paper, and I had, like I said, the best friend that I've had since five. She's black, and that's where we met in Lubbock. But it was just like her and I and her family and all that. All of our other friends were white, which I appreciate because it also opened my mind up to diversity and different types of music and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. But so when I moved to Houston, you want to talk about fucking culture shock. And I get it because my first year in middle school, like I moved to a new place, new school, no one, and these kids have been friends since they were elementary, but it still seemed like you just kind of flocked to your own. So I flocked to the black kids, and it was just like okay, so it was like yeah, and so I get it, and so you talk white, or you sound like, or you like this music, so you're white. So it's like in some instances, I understand that you're not black enough for the black kids, but you're too black for the white. I get that. I could relate to that, you know. But still, it's like no, yeah, you learn about your culture. So it seems like the more, even if they were the ones in town, they owned a Chinese restaurant, but you didn't eat Chinese food. What?
Yes.
And like you said, it's just like the learning of different things. And this was before Juneteenth became a national holiday. And in Indiana, we didn't celebrate Juneteenth because at that point it was truly a Texas thing. And so but learning about different things, learning, that's when I started learning more about my history, not the shit that they teach us in schools. When you start connecting to your culture, start identifying with your culture, is through people who look like you. And again, we're not all monoliths, you know. I still like all sorts of music, I still have all sorts of friends, but that is how I start to discover truly who I am and what it means to be Black, is by hanging out and talking to people who look like me, you know, and those things. So I'm like, even though there weren't a lot of Asians in your town, you're in a suburb of fucking Seattle, Washington. Come on now, you know. And it was weird that her best friend in college was also Asian, but she's never slept with an Asian dude.
Girl, girl, do you know how I was like, are you serious? So, and the next thing is, look, I don't care what anybody said. It was weird. Your best friend growing up was Chinese, okay? Because she believed her whole life that she was Chinese. Your best friend growing up was Chinese, okay? From a very Chinese family because her parents owned a Chinese restaurant. Okay, you go to college and your roommate in college is also Chinese, okay, who is fully engrossed in her own culture. She speaks the language. So you're going to tell me that you're at college and you ain't joined no Asian culture groups? You have not been hanging around the Asian group at college? And I'm like, and the code, she should have been a pro at code switching, because even if you weren't really like, consider yourself like Asian, or you don't really like certain things that are considered stereotypically to be Asian, I get that. But your best friend means that you should know how to code switch. You had to have known how to code switch between her family and your family. And I'm like, you went to college in all 4 years and you got Asian friends, but you don't mess with Asians?
Thank you.
Like, no Japanese, no Korean, no Taiwanese, nothing.
like you've never messed with, I mean, and I get if if you did not like, if you tried it and you didn't like it, but to say that you've never had one encounter with an Asian man,
Never even
that
dated them to see how it was.
that to me was like, what? And so I was just like, so I was like, huh, that's a little weird. And like, okay, I don't need anyone to tell me how to survive in white culture because we do it every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my friends from different ethnicities, my Hispanic friends, my Latino friends, I ask them about where they're from. Like, I don't assume every fucking person that I meet who is Latino or Hispanic that they're from fucking Mexico. One of my good friends, she's from El Salvador. So we talked about El Salvadorian food. She would teach me Spanish, and I'm like, okay, so tell me about this. Where do I go here? How do I do, like, just different things, like. And even in El Salvadorians have different traditions and celebrate different holidays than straight up Mexicans and Colombians and Hondurans, so forth and so on. So I'm like, dude, it was just like, I get it. I think, and I guess, and I'm going to get to the stuff that I do like about the movie because I actually enjoyed it, but these were just some of the things that just kind of stood out to me. It was like, you never took the time to embrace who you were culturally. So it made the code switching a little bit hard. Even if you were, even though your family was, and it never explained, like, did you feel like it would be a betrayal to your family? Did you feel like it would be a betrayal? But you got mad when people called you white, or when you got mad when people called you out on your bias, your own internalized biases or racism, towards your own people or towards anything Asian. But that's how, again, like I said earlier, that's how Lolo presented. That's how she presented. And it never really explained why she felt that way. Like, I think so. I don't know. And especially, like I said, if you're going to use the job to do it, you could have gotten sick of all the racism at the job and quit and gone on your own self journey. Or they could have used the job as a different catalyst than having it play such a big part in the movie, because it really it didn't do anything for me. Going back to all that, it just didn't explain anything. So, but yeah. Speaking of Deadeye, what did you think of Deadeye? I kind of liked her.
Hated the character.
You hated you hated Deadeye?
The character was very pathetic. I don't deal well with pathetic characters like that.
Why did you think Deadeye was pathetic?
Because she was pathetic. She had no friends, none whatsoever. She joined the trip because she had probably had nothing better to do with her life because she had nothing going in her life. Okay.
She was part of BTS Army.
I'm sorry?
I said she was part of BTS Army. She had BTS Army friends online.
Pathetic. That you didn't even have real friends. You have not one real friend. It's pathetic. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. Now, I like the part where her family was very disparaging to her. And she was like, I love my family. I love my family. Like, trying to force herself into that feeling of, I love my family. I love my family, you know, and she's just so used to how her family treats her. And I get that. And it's those parts that, you know, I liked about the movie. But overall, the character was blah to me. Like, I was just like, I didn't understand the purpose. Like, it was literally for laughs. And like I said, I wasn't about the fake like comedy and everything like that in order to just laugh. Like, I don't feel there was anything truly significant about the like raunchy and the comedy and like the deadpan humor. Like, I didn't get that whole thing. Like, it did not resonate with me at all.
See, in the beginning, I felt the way you felt about Deadeye, but I think as a character, she's probably the one who had the most growth as far as growing on me as a person and not coming across as so weird. Like by the end, you understood where she was coming from, that she was socially awkward, still trying to figure out herself, figure out who she was. Because by the end, if you notice, the pronouns had changed, and you could tell that a lot of it stemmed from a lack of confidence. But as she went on and she truly became friends with these people, and she was no longer just Lolo's cousin, you know. I really like that, and I love that, you know, the BTS Army, whatever that dude he came through for at the airport. So it was really interesting. I thought she was, so she grew on me, and I did come to really appreciate and love Deadeye. She had some moments like, because it was crazy when a girl threw up on her in the club, and she was like, "No, that's okay." I'm like, "Oh hell no, it's not." Like for real. But you know, so I could appreciate her, and I'm glad that she did not end the way she started. If she had maintained that same arc and not had shown any growth as a character, then I would have to agree with you about her being pretty pathetic. And that's how she started. But I loved how her character ended. Um, what I loved the gorgeous man Candy. I loved Anthony Hodge. He played the college boyfriend. He was also an insecure. I just love him in any role that he's in. I think he is so handsome. And I also love Desmond Chime. I think I'm saying his name right. I've seen him in a couple of other things, but he's sexy too. And that was Clarence. Like, ooh, Clarence, make room for God. We got to make room for God. I'm like, oh gosh. I take it you disagree.
Okay, so this is where I couldn't shut my brain off at these scenes, right? I just couldn't. And I think this is another reason why I couldn't enjoy the movie, because I felt like certain things were in my head, and what I know of just being a fan of like Asian dramas and everything like that, um, it didn't make sense to me. And so I couldn't turn my brain off of like looking at Clarence and looking at Kat and being like, oh yes, you would definitely be successful in Chinese entertainment industry, because they wouldn't be. And so, and I was just like, oh, I was like, I can't shut my brain off, but you would never be a success. They would never hire you to be on TV as the stars of a show. You do, it just is not realistic. They just do not do that in China. And yeah. But no, and also I didn't find him to be cute. I didn't find Clarence to be cute. So, and I don't do buff dudes, so the body didn't get me necessarily either. I was like, he got a nice body, but it didn't get me. But my whole time, I'm like watching Kat and I'm watching Clarence, and I'm just like, you would not, this wouldn't actually happen. But I get the purpose of it. It just wouldn't happen.
But it's a movie, fiction. I was like, I
That's why I
thought
said
it
I
was
couldn't shut my brain. Like I could not get into that part because the whole entire time I was just like, this is stupid. Like this stupid. Like you would never. Like I'm like, y'all couldn't hire somebody that actually realistically could have been a star in China. Like y'all got people really thinking that these two people would have been stars in China, because it's not like, and it's on me. It's on me. I could not shut my brain off to it. But that was my whole thought process. Like the whole entire time, I was just like, there's no way. There's no way. And I get it's a movie. I get that. And that's why I said it was put in for a certain effect. And the effect throughout the whole movie didn't hit me. It didn't resonate with me at all on the raunchy comedy and the reason why, the purpose of those characters. It didn't get into me. Like the whole leave space for Jesus. I was like, get the fuck out of here. Like I was just like, are you serious? I said, y'all been together for 3 years and you ain't slept with each other yet, and you got another year before you actually get married. I was just like, and you're all stars in China. It just, I get it, but absolute lie, could not. That just, it didn't resonate with me at all.
yeah, the part like um I was like, okay, Kat, as much as you love sex, you've been faithful for 3 years. Like you must have gone through some batteries, some chargers, some something. Like your toy
She loved them.
collection must she did. And I'm like, but knowing just how much, seeing what we saw at the hotel in that basketball, I was like, yeah, you spent some money on some batteries. You have a hella toy collection. Um so, but yeah, I loved Clarence, and I loved Anthony Hodge, her college boyfriend. I also loved Daniel Day Kim, who's aging like Clooney. I'm adding him to my fine wine aging list. So yeah, I liked him as her. I guess he would be Audrey's stepfather, kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love that. But okay, so some of the things that I really loved, I loved the playground when they were kids, when they were first introduced, and that little guy said, and that little fucker said, "No ching chongs allowed," and Lolo just punches the shit out of him, and then Audrey's like, "You want to be best friends?" And I'm like, that's usually how shit like that works. Kids would just
Mm-hmm.
start to, "You want to be best friends?" I thought that was so cute. Um, I like the club scene, just when Audrey was just when they were just playing a game and she slaps the dude, and then when she throws up all over people, I'm like, that's just gross. But again, that goes back to my sense of humor. I'm the person who I can talk about that, throw up, and someone be like, "But I'm eating," and I'm like, "Oh, my bad." So that childish humor kind of that gets me. I love the train. The train scene was hilarious. Like, did you not think that was funny?
Not at all.
Oh my
I hate, it was my least favorite scene in the whole entire movie. We got differing opinions, Eddie. Differing
we
opinions. Because when I tell you how much I hated the trains, oh my God. Like I hated it. Like I think I was completely turned off of the movie after that.
oh my,
Like there
I
was no
lo-
going back after that.
I love the train scene, but the one thing I did not get is like, okay, I get them not wanting to take the time to do cavity searches, and I get that. So they just threw him off the train. But I'm like, dude, could you not at least open up the suitcase to see who it really belonged to? Like that was the thing to me. So the whole thing about the passports was a little bit. That was one of those things that was kind of far fetched. But I was like, okay, just go with it. Like there's certain things sometimes where you say you can't turn your brain off, and I'm like, okay, just go with it. Like that thing made really not a whole lot of sense to me. But and I get it, being out in the middle of nowhere. You know, I think they could have found another way to lose their passports or something like that. But the train scene itself, I thought was funny. Um, did you like the hotel scene?
No.
Oh my God, I love the hotel scenes. Like those were funny.
Eddie,
And
you enjoyed the movie. I did not. So I'm sure you're gonna find way more of the scenes that were enjoyable for you than me. I told you after the train, I was just like this.
And my favorite part was the threesome men. Note to men out there who are listening: women prefer threesomes with other men. Okay, it's not always about you getting your two women. We would like to be, the meat in a man sandwich. I'm just saying. I'm just putting it out there. But I love that. Like, they all found different ways to fuck them up. Um, her and I'm like, that massager. I was like, that looks hella uncomfortable, and that's gonna do some damage. And then Deadeye and her dance, they were having the BTS dance off, which I thought was just so funny. But yeah. Um, and then, so I guess I can assume that you hated the airport scene and the big reveal
Yes.
about the devil,
Yes.
the devil kitty.
Yes. Never.
I loved it. It was I okay. Um, but and then I did actually like when Audrey got to know her mom. I thought that was really, like, when they ended up in Seoul or Korea, and the video with her mom and her talking with her stepfather, just getting to know her mom. I loved that. I thought that was really, really cool. So what were some of the things you actually liked?
It was one scene.
One
Okay.
scene.
One scene.
Okay. All right.
The scene that I loved, or a couple of scenes, but the story part that I liked was when she went to her mom's stone. Oh my God, what is it called?
Great.
But it wasn't her actual grave. What's the stone called?
The headstone.
Headstone. There we go. When she went to her mom's headstone, basically, it's another name, but that's what we're gonna call it. And met up with the stepdad, and then went back and kind of learned about who her mom was in the video. I love that scene. That resonated with me. I love that. Like, that brought a tear to my eye on just how realistic and how nice it was for her, to have the video, but
Hmm.
how welcoming the stepdad was and everything like that. Like, I like that part, because you saw, like, finally she was just like, I have some type of connection. Like, this is something and then when she said, like, I'm gonna come back and visit, like, she stayed with him for a couple days. Everybody else went back to America by that point. She stayed with him for a couple days, and I love that. And I was just like, if we could have had we could have had more of that. And I understand the raunchy comedy, but if they had mixed in the drama with the raunchy comedy, I think I could have enjoyed it more, because the acting was great. I will say that. I love the acting. All right. The female cat, like, they were awesome, right? Like, you could tell, like, they really can act. But if they had mixed in more of that connection, take away the whole job thing, and make it more about her trying to figure out her culture. Maybe if it was about her job and her having to figure out her culture in some type of way for a promotion or something like that, because they've done those kind of cliche storylines before. I think I would have felt for that more than just all the raunchiness. And then at the end, you really get the connection, and you get her finally starting to see who she is. That was the one and only scene that I actually enjoyed. That was the scene where I really paid attention. I was just like, oh, this is so cute. Like, I really like this part of the movie. All the rest of that can go fly, but I really like this part of the movie.
Yeah, I loved it. Like I said, I talked about what I didn't particularly care for, and what, but like I said, I thought it did a really great job of kind of mixing in the comedy and the heart, and the story, because you still, there are some plot points that didn't necessarily work or fit, but you still got what they were trying to say, and the whole, how they intermix the identity politics and the cult, and her identity crisis and all of that stuff. So, all right, I guess, see, we did it. I remember what you said about how long you thought this was going to be,
Oh,
and it was.
I knew you was gonna do it though, Eddie. I knew you was gonna do it, because if it was up to me, we would have stayed within my time frame. So I knew if I could depend on you to drag this out, Eddie. You did very well, Eddie. You got
But
this.
it was a good. I think it was a good conversation.
But here's the thing: what was the conversation mainly about? What did we mainly talk about?
We talked about the things, because I wanted you to talk. We talked about the things that we did, that we didn't particularly care for.
But we most of the stuff that we were talking about was about representation and
Oh yeah,
how and her connection to her culture and everything like that. Like that's that, and we're very good at having those conversations. So I'm like, that was good on like dragging the conversation and having that conversation. But if we were just to talk about like majority of the movie, which was the raunchy comedy, it would have stayed within the time frame that I had. But because we extended on the seriousness of certain parts of the movie, we broadened that aspect of the movie. That is the reason why we were able to have a really nice conversation about it, about culture and her connection to her culture and everything like that. But I'll tell you right now, if it was about just the raunchy comedy and the ridiculousness of those scenes that we just talked about that you liked and I didn't, it'd have been within my time frame. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I think it would have been shorter than I think it would have been like. I think it would have been like, "Hey, I'm Tammy. I hated this shit. This is the scene I liked. Yeah, the acting was good, and okay, here's my rating. I'm done."
Next. But I love the fact that we were able to like have that conversation and able to expand on it, because like I'm telling you. But you know what? Let's get to this rating.
Okay, so what are you rating this?
Okay, so look. We talked about this, okay? I have already announced my opinion about this movie. I did not enjoy it. I rolled my eyes majority of the time. I did not laugh. I think I laughed like maybe once, and it was none of the like raunchy scenes that people are supposed to be cracking up about. So I'm gonna unfortunately have to give this the Mulan treatment.
Oh shit.
Okay, not necessarily Mulan. A little bit above Mulan, because I don't think anybody can ever be as bad as Mulan, but it's still getting the Mulan treatment. So I'm gonna be kind, and this is me being
getting
kind.
out of the ones.
I'm getting out of the ones, barely. Okay.
Oh,
I am going to give this 2 popcorns. Like somebody bumped into me. I spilled majority of my bucket. But then we were like rushing to get to our seats before the movie starts, so I didn't even care enough to like go get myself a refill. Like I just dealt with majority of my popcorn bucket being done, and then by the time I got into the movie, I realized I need popcorn anyway because I was gonna be falling asleep. So so 2 popcorns. That's what I'm gonna give it. What about you, Eddie?
Damn. I'm giving it 3.75 popcorns. I would definitely recommend, especially if you like adult comedies, and it was just fun laughs. Again, like I said, like we already talked about, some things worked. More of it worked for me than it didn't. And like I said, I love the fact that it still manages to have heart and be a bit thought provoking without taking itself too seriously. So it's definitely a good, fun summer romp. And yeah, so I guess that does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Please be sure to listen, like, follow, and comment anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. That's us. You should also keep up to date on the latest in entertainment pop culture news, as well as other amazing kernels of pop culture goodness at thepopcornwinddown.com. That's it. That's the plug. Pop it, pop, 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 pop.
Pop, 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 pop.
Thank you as always. See, that was her 2 popcorn, like pop, pop. Thank you as always. And be sure to join us next week when we discuss. I cannot wait for this one. I'm so excited. As a matter of fact, I'm going to an early preview of it tonight. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
How did you get an early preview?
It just popped up, and so
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
I signed up for it. It popped up over a month ago, and as much as I'm always changing times and dates and everything like that, I was like, I made sure I did not fuck with this one. I did not change it. I'm like, no, everything else can be changed, canceled, moved around. But yeah, so it's been on the calendar for a while. So yeah, I cannot wait, and I think that's going to be a interesting conversation. So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, that's our next episode. Until next time, I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy. Bye.
Peace.